ultimately, mediumship is about communication with loved ones who are in spirit. And for everyone who passes into spirit, there is a family that's left in grief. They're left with unanswered questions. And the role of the medium, I think we can sometimes forget that we play such a vital role because it's very healing to bring evidence of someone who's in spirit to a person who's in mourning. Now, that's never more relative when you have a mother who's grieving loss of a child, whether that child's been born or unborn or 50 years old or 10 years old. Grief has a way of waking you up and helping to get you to ask some of the important questions in life and changing the focus from the world in front of you to what's going on inside of you. And when people come to a medium, that's what they're really looking for. They're looking for answers to the mysteries. Now, is there something in this? And when you're working with development and working with your own mediumship, it is so important that you really work with spirit in a way that it's not generic, that it's specific information. So in class, I am forever pushing everyone who sits to ask spirit for more information, to give them more clarity. And anyone who's sat in class will know that that's part of how you start to really develop a rapport with your spirit guides and with those who are coming to you in the spirit. Now, over years I started to observe that a lot of people received information from spirit, but like what you were saying, it's like they're telling me, I need to do it. But I want to turn it around and say that what you were saying, you have that right to take that back and to say, that's not appropriate at this time of night. That's not appropriate in that part of my life. I need to take control of this, just like any other part of my life, so it does not become so intrusive. So part of what we work with in development class is your ability to know when to work and when to shut it down, when to close it down. So there's an opening process in a class. It becomes like a ritual. And that ritual is an opening prayer. It's an opening process where we open up the energy in a safe environment and we ask our guides and our helpers to step forward to protect us and to help us with the communication. They come in, they work with us, even if we don't necessarily know who they are in the moment, but they will step forward, they will start working with us, and at the end of the session, we always conclude that session with another ritual of closing down. So when you're working in class, what you're doing is you're establishing a routine. And that routine is when I'm at work, I open up. When I'm not working, I close it down. I can hear intuition all the time around me. You can't stop it. But I'm in control of how that affects my life, what I do with that life, and when it's appropriate for me to pick that up and to pass that on. I don't know about you, but I've had some mighty interesting people. I have been walking out of this room through that door, and I've had a medium chase me to the toilet trying to read me while I've been going, I need to go to the toilet there. And so I'm out the door and they're following me. I'm like looking at it. Intrusive, because I didn't ask for it. I've also had people come in and want to read me so desperately that it felt like they've almost like latched onto me and drained my energy and taken my energy. Yeah. And so there are things that you learn when it's appropriate, how to present it, and be responsible with the information you've got. Because if you're receiving information from spirit and that person has lost a loved one, the natural response is to bring comfort to that person. But if you're in the midst of real grief and loss and someone says, I have them here with you, chances are if they're not in the right headspace to hear that or it challenges them, they're going to tell you what they think of you and they'll scream, get away from you. Because it's not a given that they're ready to hear it. Right? The other side of that coin is, well, guess what? There'll be those that will want you to solve everything in their life. You know, what do you think? What do you think? It's almost like the magic genie. Poof! What would you? Poof! What would you? And you think, well, you can't do that either because you've got that personal responsibility to yourself as well as to them. There's their mysteries. So you're always walking this fine balancing act all the time with your development, and this is called your discipline, right? So anyone who says to you, I'm going to teach you to be a medium in 6 weeks, I would strongly recommend you say, I'll take what you've got and then walk away and know that they can't teach you to be a medium in 6 weeks. Because it's a lifelong journey that you'll still be going in 20 years. I am still, every time I walk through a classroom door, I learn as much from you guys as you could learn from me. It's a give and take sharing, and we are always learning, okay? So today, I thought we could spend the first part of this afternoon discussing guides, guardians, energy, just laying the format for how the circle will proceed. We'll stop, we'll have a cuppa, we'll have something to eat, and then what we'll do is we'll go into the actual development class part, where we'll come in, we'll do a meditation, and we'll start to actually pick up spirit and work with giving those messages. Because giving a message or a loved one, there's also areas that we have to learn and tools that we can use to help do that. We have symbolic sight, we have literal sight. So you have to be able to distinguish between symbolic sight and what's been literally given to you in the mind and in the physical. Then there's your terminology. You've always got to say, how am I going to present it? How do I present this without causing pain to that person? You know, so just because you get that, and just because that's how Spirit's saying it, is that appropriate to say in the moment? Is there a way I can say that, keeping the essence of it without the way it's being said from Spirit? Because if you get that that person's not well, you really have no right to say to them, oh, by the way, you know, I don't think you're very well. In fact, I think, and then off you go, well, what gives you the right to say that to someone, how would you feel that's being said to you? Now, Spirit might be giving you some inspiration on that, but how do you put that? How do you phrase that? You know, there are ways that you can say things without necessarily saying them, right? So you always, please, always just stop it in that moment and just think, how can I phrase that in a way that will cause that person no harm? Okay? So if you are picking up an issue with health, you might just say to that person, I'm really being drawn to this part of your body, and I feel that there may be something going on here. You may be losing energy, or there may just be something that's happening in here. You may even start to feel yourself coughing, or you may feel that there's something going on there. And then you may just say to them, it might be worth taking yourself to the doctor, or just at least getting it checked for your own peace of mind. All you're doing is highlighting it, drawing their attention to it, because you're not a doctor. Okay? So that utmost is probably one of the most important things I'm going to say to you today. So that's why I'm saying it at the very outside of what we're doing here, right? Before we get started, there are areas that you would not want people to delve into, and there are areas that, you know, if it's said right, you can accept it, right? But there's also areas which are just out of bounds, which you just don't go into, and you respect everyone's right to have those, okay? Another thing that you will do is you will look at the person as you're reading them, and you will start to gauge how they are receiving your information. And if you can interpret through their body language that they're not liking how you're saying that, you need to modify. And you know, people think it's all about communication with Spirit, but I'm very sorry to say it's that person who's in front of you. And in front, then the reading's over before it's begun. Okay? So you're always working on a two-way rapport. Okay? You're always working to make that person that you're reading for feel safe and secure and to feel confident, because I believe you said you were scared of it. Right? What are they going to reveal about me? What are they going to say about me? What is the whole room going to hear that I might not like? And I hear that more than what you would ever believe. But when I first started going into the churches, that was my thing, right? You've never thought that? Well, that was one of my things. And if they said something I didn't like, nope, I'm not going to accept that either. Nope. And you know, you have to go up later and say, it's not original. And I've had people do it to me, and so I really get where they're coming from, and then you walk away and think, just not going to say that. But, you know, everyone has the right to accept and to leave things, and you have to learn how to respect that. So I'm just saying that from the outside so that we all know exactly where we're standing on that. And it's called integrity, and it's called your ethics. And a lot of what you get taught in your development class is really going to be about, is going to fall into line with that, okay? So some of you said you worked with energy before. Does anybody see auras?
Oh, lucky thing. I've never seen yours now. It's just beautiful.
Oh, is it? Can you describe it, please?
It's really white and bright.
White and bright.
And it's really close, at the moment, what I can see is really close to the head. Sometimes I see it, you know.
But it's here?
I've even seen a perfectly black aura. And it was so heavy and thick, it was trailing behind the person.
And what was your inspiration about that? What were you inspired about that?
That was my ex-husband.
Oh, that's so there's not going to be a lot of understanding this out, actually.
No influence.
No. But it's a truth, and you were very tapped into that energy. And yes, you've touched on something that's important.
I could even see it on top of the bed, because by that stage we were in separate rooms. I could even see his blackness all about that far above the quilt. And then he'd leave the house, and it was that thick and heavy that I'd have to, you know, pull all the lines up, let the sun in a house, light some incense, do my business to get rid of it, because it was so heavy. Yeah.
And you have touched on an area that can happen to us as human beings. So is the light, so is the dark.
Yeah.
So is the daylight, there will be night. If it's a hot day, then it must be a cold day. Are you enjoying the cold weather?
I'd like it to last a bit.
I'd like it to last indefinitely until next year, you know, but that's okay. The universe is built on duality, and everything has a light and a dark, right? So where there is light, there is dark. However, when we're working with mediumship and in the development class, we are drawing in the energy from the light. And that is why we have a doorkeeper, and that is why we have guardians, and that is why we have our healing helpers. Because we call these presences in, these spirit people in, because they take care of what's going on as we open up to work. They're in charge of the unseen part, and we're in charge of the seen part. So we have a union of heaven and earth. We are that link. So our guardian spirit is that part, that spirit that joins us when we decide to incarnate into the earth. And that is through the whole of our life. Our guardian spirit will not change. That presence will be with us from the time we choose to incarnate to the time we come home to spirit. That is that presence, and it is your best friend, and they will always be there for you, and they will never tell you what to do. Okay? They will strongly urge you by inspiring you to turn, right? They'll impress you to have a cup of coffee, and you might be 5 minutes later, and you wonder, I never stop and have coffee. And then if I left 5 minutes earlier, there might be an accident on the way home, and you might come across it. And had you left 5-10 minutes earlier, you would have been right in that spot at that time, and you could have been involved in the accident. So they will inspire you, and if they do their job well, you won't know they're doing it. You'll think it's you because you're just so clever. Okay? True. Okay? But they are always guiding you. Guardian angel, guardian spirit, they are always guiding you, never telling you. Right? Your doorkeeper is a different matter altogether. So do you, any of you feel you know your doorkeeper? No? Well, that would be something we would be working at over a period of time for you to get to know. Now, your doorkeeper, when I want you to, picture this. I'm standing on a Sunday afternoon and I'm about to do demonstrations at the church, and there is 40 people sitting in the room. Now, I would say that probably as a rough estimate, each one of you might have between 1 to 5 people in spirit at this time in your life, between. And connected to those 1 to 5 people, then there's all these other people, like their mothers and fathers and all that extended family. So there's quite a network of spirit people around each one of you that you might not even know exists, right? So you're a medium and you're about to stand up and you're about to do a reading. Now, think about the law of averages. If there's one person in the room during the readings and there's 40 people and there could be 400 in spirit who have joined you that afternoon, okay? Could you imagine the chaos and the mayhem if you just opened up and said, come on, give me a message? And it was undisciplined, unfocused, unorganised, and you had, say, Gail sitting here and you're sitting here and I'm getting the reading, and all of your relos are there, and your relos are there, and they're all cross-feeding into the medium and saying, and the medium's going, red, blue, a man, a woman. It just becomes like a chaotic mess, and it's nonsensical.
We've had that once, haven't we, in the last 4 years, where we had one girl who stand up in class and actually didn't know she was giving 2 readings to 2 different people at once. So, yeah, and it was chaotic.
It was chaotic.
And we're all saying yes, but yeah, that's not
and this one, and this one, and this one, and this one, and everyone was feeding off each other, and it was just, it was a marvel to behold. It really was. Now what we do is we discipline and we learn to read and keep them separate. So I get them to get up and do 2 readings at once. One reading, then the next one, and then go back to that one, and then go back to that one. We've done that and they amaze themselves. The ladies, they do it beautifully well. And that's the point you get to. It becomes so disciplined and so clear that you can give 1 reading here, and then you can say, I'll hold that there, you pick your nana, and oh yeah, that's my nana. And then you'll come to you and you'll say, I've got your grandfather, and we'll give that information, and stop it there, and then come back to your nana, and then come back to you, and then come back to you. Most people find it very hard just to get 1 person in, right? But to be able to manage the 2, it's a real thing, an exercise that really teaches discipline. But that's where you get to over a number of years, right? Okay, trust me.
The ladies just rolling your eyes. You learn.
You learn.
The driver's seat.
You do. You take control. So that's what your doorkeeper brings to you. Okay? The doorkeeper joins you. Today, every one of you, I'm going to make a statement here. Today, you've all walked through a development circle door. So every single one of you have just invoked your doorkeeper into action. So if they've been sitting on some cloud up there, kind of hanging out, waiting for you to catch up with the spirit of it, you've woke them up. Say hello, right? Because they're now saying, okay, we're here, you're ready to work, let's go. So when I stand up, my doorkeeper comes in, they will turn around, and I'll say it in a way that makes sense, because I don't think it's exactly like this, but to me, this is how it's ordered. Okay, I am coming to you, I need your relatives, right? Your relatives need to come in here. Now, I don't need any one of your relatives at the moment, so my doorkeeper will then say to you, okay, I hear you there, but you will wait your turn. We are working here. And then you might have 4 or 5 people. So you'll say, okay, so who's going to be the main voice? Who's the one who can make the connection? You can, get in here. You bring it through. Right? When you're finished, step back. When you come in, you give this next part. You're going to work there. Do you see how this works?
It's so sort of like the MC.
That's it. However, in saying that, it's all unseen.
Yeah.
And it's all probably oblivious to you. Okay? But your teacher, if they're teaching you a way of actually being able to manage this, are going, whether you know it or not, that's what they're going to be teaching you. Right? And it happens naturally. Because when you step up, they step up. So it's kind of like there's this 2-way communication, and yet at the same time you won't necessarily even know that they're there. The way that I say to make it easier for you is to ask them for a calling card. Something that happens each time you open up to work for Spirit, and it may be you get a feeling like that, you may feel really hot, you may get a tickling on the head, or you may feel something like you may feel like your arm starts to move. Something where you will actually feel a physical shift. And the moment that shift happens, you think, right, the doorkeeper's in, we can for me, as soon as I get within probably 15 minutes of the venue I'm working, I feel it in my stomach, and I go, spirit just slipped in, I know I'm right. If I don't get that, I get a bit nervy. I'm all right. I can stand in front of anyone and do readings as long as I can feel my stomach. The moment I can't feel my stomach, I get nervous, because then I'm thinking, oh, you're there, over there. Up until that moment, you know, I need to feel that, because then I can feel that shift happening. Okay? So Guardian is not so much going to work with you as you're actually doing the gems, doing your readings so much. They'll be there, and they'll be protecting and organising the room and getting the energy right. But your doorkeeper is the one who's actually going to be working with you on that later on. Okay? So there's just two, and we'll leave it with the two because they're the main players. Other ones will come in and change and shift and move for when you need them. Okay? Healing guides will change. If you go off to Reiki, then you'll get some healing guides that work more on the Reiki. Would you agree with that? You get a different variety because you've done a bit of Reiki work.
Yes.
Do you agree that you might have one that you feel under symbols around that and a connection in with the Reiki energy, and then if you're doing something else, perhaps you might get a different guide feeling coming in?
Yes, I get different people. It depends on the person. Some people go really into it, and other people say, oh, I can really feel it. But I know that